we spend a lot of our international time at either exhibiting or at attending trade shows. And for us, that's a really valuable way of meeting new distributors and getting responses to some of the products we're bringing to market. And I think that if you're going to export and you're going to go outside, you know, the little bubble that we have in Australia, it's really important to understand which products are going to resonate in which markets. You know, even basic things like colours, you know, certain colours sell better in different regions and different times of the year. And being there and actually having that face-to-face time and those relationships, while internet and Skype and everything is obviously such a valuable tool, I think that face-to-face is really the strong point of business still.
Yeah.
We always had a vision and a plan to be global. We were actually just looking the other day at our first business plan that we wrote, and our plan was to be global in year 3. And we had our first international inquiry, I think, within 4 to 6 months of launching. And what we'd underestimated was the power of the internet. And I'm talking back in 2008, 2009 now. But, you know, we had our first inquiry from Twitter. And that was 24 hours after a friend said, "What do you mean you don't have a Twitter page? You have to have a Twitter page." And I was like, "What's Twitter?" So I think for us, we certainly always saw the scope for global. It's a very big part of our business. Probably 60% of our business is international. I think from an international perspective, probably one of the biggest challenges is protecting your IP. That's certainly for us, we design our own products. So when we first started, we patented in Australia and we patented in the US because that was going to be the market we were going to conquer. And what we've since learned, and thankfully sooner rather than later, was to actually protect at the source. So we patent everything in China. We make sure trademarks. So, you know, we just even recently heard a story from a friend of ours who had launched a brand that was really popular here, hadn't really looked to export it yet. Someone had registered not just the name but the logo in China and kind of held it to ransom. And I think that they're some of the biggest challenges as a small business that you face, is you're so focused on what you're doing day to day and launching your product and making sure that you're connecting with the right bloggers and influencers in your Instagram and all the rest of it. And you go, oh, to spend this money with lawyers. But I would say it's probably money well spent. So that's been a challenge for us in the sense that, and also to your point on trusting, you know, I literally we've been doing this now for 10 years, but still learning, and I'd like to think I keep some of my naivety because that's trusting people, but it sometimes bites you. We went in to have a factory meeting with a new factory we were working with, and we walked in, brand new product, hasn't been released to market, and it was only because I said I wanted to test the product in situ that I walked into their showroom area, and there's the product in their packaging. They'd completely ripped it off. So this isn't someone who saw it at a show and has gone and copied it. This is someone we were manufacturing with, and they're just looking at us like, well, what's the problem? And I said, well, the meeting is over, like, we're done. But legally, there's nothing we can do. And those kind of, I think, as a small business and how we work culturally is so different. So I think the challenge is for us is to understand where you're manufacturing, whether that's India, Vietnam, China, locally, what the culture is, and then you work within their culture rather than us setting our limits. So I think we've managed to turn that now into an advantage and use those hard lessons learned. But yeah, definitely protecting, if you've got original ideas, protecting them is fundamental. We actually went and did market research, and we didn't just do market research with the consumer, we did market research with retailers. And we got them to sign NDAs and all the rest of it. And we have more legal advice. Both our husbands are lawyers, so we have more legal advice than I know what to do with. But they actually are useful and have joined the business recently, so that's awesome. But what we found is you have to ask your end consumer, and you have to be open to what they tell you. So we, for example, we do baby products, and I'm wearing a little bit of pink, but I'm not a pink person. I've got 3 girls. I wasn't planning on doing pink because that was cliched baby. And everyone said, what do you mean you don't have pink? So we added pink into the range. And it sounds something simple, but we had to listen to the consumer. We also went to the retailer. How do you want to see it packaged? Where would you see it in the store? How would you package it? Where would you put it in the store? Is it on a shelf? Is it hang sell? All of those kind of things, and that then we fed back into our product design and our packaging design, and we still do that now. And then in terms of internationally and also domestically, we showed it at trade shows, consumer shows, and got on-the-ground feedback from people. And we've tweaked things along the way because of consumer feedback. We've created products because of consumer feedback or retailer feedback, for example. When we launched in the US, they didn't like the way we'd packaged something. It didn't work for their market and that store, so we repackaged it. And you've got to be open, you've got to stay true to who you are and your brand. So if they'd wanted something that wasn't within that brand ethos, we wouldn't have done it. But we worked with them to give them what they needed for their market. We weren't sitting here saying it's one size fits all, and we certainly have never said it's our way or no way. But I think that flexibility and listening to other people has been really key for us in product development, definitely. So your relationship with your manufacturer is one thing, and that, I don't know, we haven't manufactured in Vietnam, I only can speak from manufacturing in China, and I'm going to say most of those agreements aren't worth the paper they're written on. What's really important is to sit across the table and have that discussion and the handshake and that relationship. We have lawyers here and in China and in different countries that we're trademarking and protecting our idea. So your agreement with your manufacturer is one thing, and yes, you don't want them to share your IP and your concept or anything else, but it's actually protecting that idea and concept in the key markets that you are planning on operating in, but also where you're manufacturing. Because for us, if, for example, I can't afford to patent every single product we bring to market everywhere around the world, it's just cost prohibitive. But if, for example, in France, I saw someone had designed or was manufacturing a product that breached our patent, and they were manufacturing that in China, I can stop them because I've got the protection in China. So within China, they're not allowed to breach that patent, therefore they can't export that IP. It's such a grey area. It's so hard to prove. But definitely from a business asset perspective, I think it adds value to your business, particularly if it's a really unique concept. But I would get legal advice, and I would also get legal advice in Vietnam from what you're saying. And our Australian lawyers and our international lawyers talk. I'm assuming the Australian lawyers would probably have someone on the ground if they're a big enough firm. But definitely get advice on the ground, because what we think works, and we've had legal advice here, and then you speak to the lawyers there and they say, well, that's nice in theory, but we don't have passing off laws in China, for example. So they will understand the nuances for their particular region, and I would definitely get advice there.
Yeah, and I think it's important, just picking up on what Dannielle's point is, I'll just self-declare that I design handbags very similarly, as a hobby though, and similarly was mortified when I went to the factory to, get my first order, and had noticed that they'd changed the toggle. It was, they'd made it round instead of triangular, and I was like, oh, that's very strange. Why did they do that? And it was because they had copied the design and just changed one little thing. So sometimes it could be a very small change in the design, which then means it's not an exact copy. And then when I had sought legal advice on that case, they were like, oh, well, if they manufacture it in Turkey and then they're exporting it to China, well, then it doesn't matter because, even if you have an agreement with them there, it's for shipping back to here. So you have to understand all your export markets and then understand the regulatory environment across all of that. So, yeah, it's painful, but, you have to do your homework.
And I think it's understanding not your export market for today, but understanding where you really see the growth potential for your business going forward, or for that particular product going forward. And it may be different products you think are going to really resonate in different markets, so that's where you make those decisions. But from a trademark point of view, like your brand, you trademark your brand everywhere. Definitely. And before it gets popular, I should add. We have in the past done audits of factories that we work with. And we've also gone and visited factories, and then again we've got someone on the ground and we've turned around and said, yeah, we're not manufacturing here, this is not. Either they bring it up to standard and we were happy to work with them to bring it up to a standard that works for us, or we walk away, and we've walked away. So we know, I don't know what happens every day in the factory, but I think I'm confident that we've done everything we can, that I can look myself in the mirror every morning and feel good about who looks back. And that's my criteria, certainly. To your point on manufacturing in Australia, for us, it's not possible, because no one's going to spend $85 for a child's sippy cup, and that's effectively what it would cost to, and that's disappointing. But we design everything locally here, we prototype everything here, we test everything here, so that's our way of giving back to the local. But the realities of manufacturing are that for us, China's where we can make it commercially viable. So I think it's knowing your market, knowing what's required, and having the confidence in what you're doing, and that other people will share in that. I think finding the right partner internationally is really hard. We've been really fortunate, and we've been fortunate to cut them off when they haven't been doing what we want them to do, but I've never thought it as terrifying.